Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast. TRAP. Trap. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the Trap team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of Trap.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 48 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP Trap. My name is Lick Ninken, and joining me as ever in the digital studio of doom are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse. Alan, the storyteller Smith, Andy Ultra Heart, and Carl Della Voce Widger. Now, before we plough on, just to let you know that Mr. Smith, the storyteller, has had some tech issues with his microphone, so he's going to do his very best for this episode, and hopefully it comes through loud and clear in your ears at home listening via your transistor radios. Okay, Mr. Hart, without any further ado, let's get the show going with some more high-energy review reads, please, my friend.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Okay, first review is entitled Brilliant, Relevant Content, 5 stars from Carly Dunningham. Always look forward to a new show coming out. Thanks, guys, for keeping me company on my commutes. Great content and enjoyed the banter. And thanks, Carl, for the Nordis backpack recommendation. She's just winding you up there. Next review is entitled Informative and Funny, 5 stars. When I first heard about Trap, knowing Andy and Nick and having met Alan, I thought, oh my God, this will be a large dose of the ego has landed. And to a certain extent, the banter and sometimes arguments that spill over do lean in that direction. But it's humour, and that's the large part of the appeal that keeps me coming back. The meat and potatoes and the other nuggets of wisdom and common sense are immensely valuable, whether you're a seasoned professional determined to keep learning or a new trainee starting out on your journey. I learn something from every episode, and I recommend this podcast to every other advisor I meet. Keep up the great work, Gavin Johnson. Back to you, Nicholas.
Great stuff. Thank you, Trappists, for the reviews. They really do give us a shot in the arm, so please do keep on pumping out those 6 out of 5-star reviews on iTunes. Now, let's give episode 48 a topical timestamp. On the day this episode comes out is the day of the general election, so we're not going to talk about that today. We'll probably have to talk about it in episode 49 because we'll be dealing with the ramifications of it. But there is something else going on in the world, apparently, in that day of Germany. Mr. Hart.
Yeah, on a bit more of a cheery note, this is coming out on Thursday. England are playing on Saturday, 5 p.m. against Switzerland. We've got 3 more games to comfortably win, and then we're going to lift the trophy. It was excruciating, the game, the last 16, but we got through with a Hey Jude final minute goal, followed by a Kane header. All my bets were off. A draw in 90 minutes is never good for us gamblers. But yeah, that's it.
It's been magnificent to see how the whole country has got behind the team.
And especially the manager. But they played so well, though, to be fair. There's some outstanding matches.
It's been
against the 45th
especially excruciating tournament.
What's the phrase? You've got to be in it to win it? Is that how it goes, Andy? I'm not really up with these things.
Anyway, let's hope by the next
You're not
episode
into the
comes
football,
out.
Nick.
I'm not, no.
We might be in the final by the next episode anyway. I need to get the dates right. But yeah, anyway, that's that. It was a good result, but it was excruciating. But the videos online are very funny, seeing all the different England fans celebrating in various different places, Box Park and various other things. It's yeah, all good. That's it.
Were there riots and stuff, was it? Or no, sorry. Go on.
We'll leave that for the final.
Moving on then. So we, the Trap Pack, assembled recently in Southwest Ireland for a certain Trap Pack member's big birthday. Carl, did you have a good time? We certainly did.
I had the most wonderful time and was very surprised that the Trap Pack arrived over. You got me. 100% you got me. Smithy was always coming, and although I didn't tell you, I was very annoyed that the two of you weren't coming.
He told me privately. He said, I can't believe it. I had to keep the whole thing going. Those two bastards.
Yeah,
They couldn't
yeah.
come.
Whereas none of you came to my wedding, not one of you. So you can bloody shove that pain up your arse. Come on.
Did you get married?
You didn't invite us.
Jeepers. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
was
so
at the party at your house, Nick. I turned down the position of best man, and someone else stepped
There was
in.
no wedding. No
yeah, no, it was great, and obviously TLP arrived along as well, and she added to the glamour of the occasion. But yeah, look, it was a great night. I was full of gratitude. I really was for a long period of time. I had a festival of celebration, and and I'm going to be teetotal, I think, for a while to come. But it was absolutely brilliant, and thanks, boys, for making the effort.
Yeah, very good. And in the so-called show notes, there's a link to a YouTube short showing the moment that myself and Ultra arrived at the party, and it's just lovely. It's lovely.
It was a cracking night, and your kids are amazing and great host. It was cracking.
That was brilliant.
Yeah,
it was great Irish hospitality. It lasted a week. It wasn't just one night, was it? Nick and I stayed, and TLP stayed a bit longer, and they had other commitments to get back to. But really wonderful, really. And we lucked out, or you lucked out, with the weather as well. Brilliant sunshine on the night and the next day. So
it was amazing.
A very good weekend.
Yeah.
Amazing. Anyway, onwards we go to the next stuff.
Okay. Next on the docket, we've got someone's put this in without any attribution, so I'm not even going to. Whoever did that can lead it off.
I don't know who did it, but are we going to discuss the potential removal of tax-free cash?
I put it. Yeah, well, no, it was more we are in this political transition, and inevitably you get media reports. Some are speculative, some are highly expected. Things like the addition of VAT to school fees, private fees. There was a big report about the potential removal of pension commencement lump sum tax-free cash, in other words, and there's a usual hype. And so advisors receive calls, emails, conversations from clients saying, what should we do? If this new government comes in, removes our tax-free cash, I'll be pretty pissed off. And if you don't, you're between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? Because if you do that, and they don't remove it, or multiple other things. The reason I raised it is because we are literally this week, the week this comes out, we're 99% chance as we speak on Monday, that we've got a new government in place who are inevitably going to make a lot of changes which will affect the personal finance market. So my question to the group here is, how do you react when the client says, what shall we do about these potential changes? Nick?
Okay, can I go first? I generally say we do nothing. We just can't. We don't know what's going to happen. So we just do nothing. The Labour have clarified and said they're not going to remove the 25% tax-free cash thing. They said they're going to keep that. If you believe that or not, they have said that. The only thing I think I'd be doing is with owners of small businesses where they're paying 60k a year into their pensions as employer pension contributions. I might say, do you want to bring that forward if you can? Because it won't hurt to get it in the pot any earlier. So why not do that? Because there's a chance they may bring in NI on employer pension contributions, God knows what else. So, but no, I don't. You can't do it on what ifs. I just don't think that's a feasible way to go forward.
I think what any good financial planner would be doing would be watching this space and basically having a look to see, is there a change of government, and then what kind of policies has the new government said that they're going to introduce. And be ahead of the curve here. Be in touch with your clients so that they're not sitting wondering, and just say, look, there is a change of government if that is the case, and here are the policies, and we will be watching very closely as to what the affects for your personal finances might be, and we will be in touch in due course when we know that it's happening. But at least you're out there, you're being proactive, and you're basically telling your clients that you're going to be all over this, and that's your job for them.
Yeah, it's very hard to plan around speculation, and the business risk is huge if you made a big decision with the client. But it depends on how integral potential change would affect a client. So general rule, similar to Nick, not going to be planning around speculation. But if something was absolutely vital to a client, then obviously you need to discuss in a bit more detail. Just to give you some, the odds now of a Labour majority are now 1.03. So if you put down £100, your profit is 3. So it's obviously anything can happen, but this is almost guaranteed. Yeah, those odds are incredibly low. Yes, Nicholas, what's your face?
That's amazing. But you put down. But they're going to win. They are going to win. They're going to have a majority. So just like that's
okay, put down your £100 to win generous. Put down your £100 to win your 3.
Yeah, put in £1 million to win whatever 30,000. Yeah,
quick question.
Absolutely.
Specifically, introduction of 20% VAT on private school fees. Would you recommend a client pre-funds even just 1 year or 2 years ahead of time to minimise or mitigate that additional 20% uplift on their costs? Just pay ahead.
I would do if you're really careful about it. You've got to read the contract. You've got to make sure that if your kid's expelled, what happens in that scenario. A lot of these schools actually are on the cusp of going under anyway. Do you get your money back if that happens? If you can get a sufficient discount, and you
won't get a discount for a year ahead.
Yeah, given them 1 year, but if you get like 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'd want some discounting in there. I'm giving you my money.
Obviously, the longer the time out, the greatest risk. This is like the classic kind of hedge bet. But 1 year, can I pay or let's say the next 2 years, which seems within a time scale, you hope your child isn't going to get expelled and school won't go bust. That's a material saving. Again, it's a tricky one to advise on because there are so many other variables.
Well, I think the key word there being advise, Alan. I wouldn't advise on it. You can have a frank, grown-up conversation with the client.
You can have a view.
They're going to decide how to proceed. Obviously, we can sprinkle in the pros and cons and the things that we've come across with other advisors, but
or maybe you tell
the word.
Maybe you tell your clients to spread it out and pay monthly. Don't pay in a lump sum in advance in case there's another change of government, because the UK has had lots of changes over the last few years, lots of different people in charge. So there you go. There's just a counterpoint on that.
Well, we've had changes to loads of different prime ministers, but not changes of governments. I mean, it's going to be socialist for the next 4 or 5 years.
Just another point on this, and sort of anecdotally, I've heard, we've possibly experienced a bit in my firm, but often you will get. One of the reasons I'm against all this is because it is an attack on the core client base of us, which is affluent, aspirational Middle England, Middle UK, Middle Ireland. We generally, as a rule, don't deal with billionaires as clients for whom this is nothing. But so therefore, this is an immediate has an immediate impact in terms of costs for average families. And what I'm hearing is school fees have been. A lot of grandparents help out with school fees. The wealthy retirees. So there's more money coming out of pension pots now to help the parents and therefore the grandchildren and even parents as well, dipping into pension funds or suspending or reducing pension contributions, for example, because there's only so far you can stretch the family budget. So that does have an impact on advice businesses as well. Food for thought.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. When the facts change, we'll change our minds. That's all we can wait for.
Okay, next on. Wodge, 12%. Oh my God, 12%. This sounds another horror story.
This was an article in CityWire, right? So I found it interesting because this is a UK firm that were basically putting their clients into high-risk bonds that defaulted. They were getting between 10 and 12% commish on said bonds, and they were also offering introducers up to between 7 and 9%. And it really rang true because I was like, wow, this happens in the UK as well, because I've mentioned that Solar 21 thing that's happened in Ireland. But the difference in the UK is the FCA came in and have banned the 3 directors from operating a firm again and have fined them, I would say, not nearly as handsomely as they should have, bearing in mind the amount of money that was involved. But all of the stuff I've been going on about conflicts of interest, introducers fees, other firms set up to kind of take some of the introductory money and all of that kind of stuff. Have a read of the article. It just goes to show this stuff still happens. It is our duty to make sure we save our clients from this kind of stuff happening. So I know I'm like a broken down record in this, but it is our duty. It is our duty. Andy?
Yeah, totally agree. The thing that's petrifying about the article is they've only been banned from holding senior management roles, as in they can still hang around in the industry and find loopholes to still advise clients about their money. Why don't they just ban them for life? It's just quite straightforward, I think, anyway. So, yeah, it's very, very scary.
Yeah, fair point. And maybe they'll become those introducers. But, you know, this 10, 12% and paying introducers 7 to 9%, it is exactly what has been happening, what has previously happened here. But I just don't think that we come down on these people hard enough. And fair point, Andy. Yeah, maybe the FCA hasn't done enough there, but
incentives drive behaviour.
Yeah, 100%.
Without trying to polish a turd, the good news about that kind of story is that 30 years ago that was commonplace, and now it stands out because it takes you back to 1994, kind of thing, in a blink of an eye. Okay,
I think the point is that there are criminals everywhere in every walk of life. There are sort of criminal solicitors, lawyers, accountants, financial advisors. They exist in society. It's the human condition. And I think it's a good point, Nick. That's why it's more newsworthy now, because it's quite unusual. But it's just, I mean, there are people there that will have lost money. I'm sure. Whether they got bailed out by the FSCS, I don't know. But
no, they have. I think that these high risk bonds have defaulted. Like if you, I would urge everyone to actually read this article, because you will be flabbergasted by what went on and the extent of it and all that kind of stuff. It's mad stuff. Mad.
Okay, on a more positive note, moving on to the next thing on the agenda. So, business banking for IFAs. I think Ultra on the show has referenced he's had issues with his bank and just the percent. Well, I will mention the bank because they're Santander, and just making it very, very difficult, endlessly requesting information about your business, where your money comes from, this kind of stuff. And on the IFA forum, which I might have mentioned, tiny.cc/IFA forum, now 546 members, there was quite a really good chain about this, who to use for business banking. So IFAs out there looking, if you've got issues with your bank, it would seem that Revolut, NatWest, who I bank with, and Lloyds are very good. There's also an offshoot of NatWest, under the NatWest umbrella, a new thing called Mettle, METTLE, which is just really clean and lean. Limited companies and sole traders only 2 directors, no financing, no overdrafts, everything is done via the app, and they want that kind of business. So if you're struggling with Santander, I think that just with Santander seems to be that they offered free business banking for life eons ago, and now some bean counter at Santander resents this and is making it really, really horrible.
I don't think it's the free banking thing for life, Nick. I have various accounts of them, and I don't have any free banking with them, and they've made my life an absolute nightmare this year.
Yeah, I know.
The source of wealth questionnaires that they're sending me, and it's just endless, and they're going through all through your accounts, website, personal bank, net worth statement. They want absolutely everything from me. And they're threatening letters, if you don't do it by this time, we're going to basically cut your bank, we're going to stop your bank account. It's absolutely horrendous. The KYC has gone absolutely insane at Santander, obviously because they were up to mischief years ago by doing who knows what. Now all the good people are getting absolutely hammered. I spoke to the guy that raised it on the IFA forum, and again, we had a bit of a discussion around it. I think all the banks are going to be stepping up the KYC, know your customer. And my accountant said the bane of his life now is his clients requesting help filling in all of these additional accounting forms that we obviously pay the accountant for. So it's time out of her day, my day, paying for it. Santander are a freaking nightmare. But the challenge I have is, do I shift off to Revolut now? And then is Revolut going to ask for the same bloody things, 6 months in? So I've got 2 banks like breathing down my neck. I might as well stick with Santander once I've given them all the guff that they want. I mean, it's insane the amount of detail they're going through. They went through every single page on my website. They rang me up and asked me questions about pages of my website. It's insane. They said, like, you said you meet clients in this location. Like, what's the link to there? And it's just like,
really?
Jesus,
that's crazy.
I would love that. I've got to say, I banked with NatWest since 1987 and with my business since 2008, and they are just brilliant. No issues, nothing whatsoever. Their online banking is very solid. So, and the startup banks, Tide, Metro, and Starling, these sort of disruptor brands, they're very hot and cold. One minute they want IFA business, the next they don't. At the moment, they're all quite cold, I think. So, Revolut, NatWest/Mettle, and Lloyds, if you're looking to switch banks, seems to be the gist. Storyteller, Belong.
I'm just raising this. This is something that I saw recently. We've all seen dozens and dozens of so-called robo-advice platforms come to market. Most haven't succeeded to the degree that they'd probably wish to. I saw something recently that I thought at least there was some innovation with this. So this is the company's, it's be-long, long.co is the website. So it is a place that you can go online and invest money. Got the usual fund options in terms of low cost, simple, global equities, S&P 500, a couple of other funds there. Started by a couple of female fintech founders, which in itself is quite unusual. What is interesting about this and differs to the sort of Me Too, the dozens of others that exist, is first of all, and the clues in the name, belong. So it's a sort of a wordplay, both. So you belong to this community, but go long with you. We're always talking about investing in equities is a long game. Invest for years, invest for decades, invest for multiple decades. If you're in that game of investing for the long term, this might be of interest, because what they will do is they will lend you up to 1 times the value of your investments. You put 10 grand into it, they would lend you 10 grand. So you're getting the growth on £20,000. That's all right. You've got a debt, to be sure. Right now, it might be a little. If you assume that equities go up at whatever you want to assume, 7, 8, 9, 10% a year, and that you are funding debt at currently, I think it's 5% on their setup, and hopefully, but though it's going to go lower. I don't know if you get to a situation where you're investing for 20 years plus 30 years, and you're able to double the value of the money invested. Now, of course, this is not advice. Do your own research, etc., etc. But I thought, for some young people, as far as I'm aware, they don't apply, margin calls or anything, because you've got the money with them. You've effectively got a 50% leveraged should you take the maximum loan. It is one way of getting a higher return. If you're investing for 30 years, take a little bit of a bump to the money that's invested, pay down some interest. It perhaps wants some further exploration, but I just thought it was innovative. It was something quite new.
Madness. Leveraging equity investment. Absolute and utter madness.
Tell me why, if you're investing for 30, 40 years, that's madness.
Because nobody does invest for 30, 40 years without any changes, because life has curveballs.
Well,
you mentioned young... No, hold on. You mentioned young people, right? So it's going to have to be young people if you're doing 30, 40 years. There's no chance a 20-year-old is going to just seamlessly do this and not look at it for 30 or 40 years. And leveraging any equity kind of investment, I've never seen it work out well. And it sounds like, as you mentioned, margin calls. It sounds like CFDs. I think it used to happen large scale here in the financial crisis, where the banks were giving out money for this, that, and the other. They also gave money out for people to leverage their equity investments, and a lot of the time it was into individual stocks and all that kind of stuff, and it went absolutely pear-shaped and wiped people out.
This is so. First of all, you can't just if you got a loan, you can't take your money out. You can't just get access to it and leave your loan going. You've got a contract with this organization, and it is like S&P 500. And funds like that.
Is 10 grand the maximum
for everyone?
Is 10 grand the maximum you can invest, Alan?
No, you can invest more than that. I think 1,000 is the lowest you can invest.
They're backed by Octopus as well. It'll be interesting to see how this business model plays out. I mean, in your investing playpen, you should stick a few quid in it and let us know how you get on.
What happens if interest rates rise and there's a 3-year period of minus returns in the stock market?
But hang on, you're talking your opposite book of what you talk every other thing. This is belong. As long as you can continue to fund your debt, why do you care? Why do you leverage on buying a house? What if interest rates go up when you buy a house? You just don't sell the house, do you? At a loss?
No, but you need somewhere to live, correct? So that's why you leverage your house. But I cannot see how. So there's so many other things that can happen. If interest rates rise, there's a recession, stock markets fall or whatever, right?
All that.
Then you might have a problem. Then you might have a problem servicing your debt. I sorry, you just said it's not advice, and fair play for saying that, right? For me, this is advice. Don't do it. It's madness, absolute madness. Fucking hell. Sorry, no.
You heard it.
That's good.
You
That's
heard
nice.
It
Nice to have some contention.
I'll tell Belong not to open in Limerick anytime soon.
Or anywhere in Ireland, because I'll be very vociferous about it. This sounds like a crazy idea.
The overarching thing was, at least it was some innovation in a very tired space.
You're right. Innovation, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Yeah, they call it a boost loan, don't they, Alan? It's quite interesting. Yeah,
it's very carefully managed. It's all credit control, all the rest of it. Of course, things can go wrong, but things can go wrong so many other things in life. But there we go. What's next?
When I bought my house in 2018, I borrowed some extra money from the Building Society to invest. But I kind of think I know what I'm doing, and also I had a fixed rate, so I knew the mortgage rate was locked down for the period of investment as well. So, and that's worked out. Worked out okay for me.
Been a very good move of yours, Nick. Getting that.
It has been a very good.
I'm
very fortunate. I'm very grateful for the fact that I seem to know what I'm doing in this one instance. Okay, Wodge, Voice. Vanguard 365 practice management. You tell us how good it is, and then Storyteller can tell you how shit it is, and then it's one all.
I wouldn't do that.
We have mentioned this before. We've mentioned this before.
Yeah, we have.
We have mentioned it before, but I this is kind of following on from the webinar that they did, which I thought was really, really good, and I mentioned this the last time, and they did, fair play, their marketing works. They because I registered for that, they sent me a kind of an email reminder. Have a look at the Vanguard 365 platform. It's really, really good. And I just thought, we get so many inquiries from younger financial planners starting their journey. And I would be lapping this stuff up. I really would. I'd be going through, they kind of set out modules, and there's quizzes at the end of the modules and all this kind of stuff. I think it's really, really, really top class stuff. And younger planners considering, starting their journey, definitely, soak this stuff in for sure.
My business year starts today, which means my CPD clock has reset today. So I've got to get my 35 hours over the next 12 months, and I will be leaning on the Vanguard 365 thing quite heavily, I think, in helping me get there for sure. Okie dokie, Ultra.
Okay,
LNG Workplace.
This is news that LNG, one of the biggest asset managers in the UK, are going to be diverting workplace pension monies into private equity and illiquid type investments. Yes, it's called the LNG Private Markets Access Fund. The LNG Private Markets Access Fund. They want to attract 500 million by the end of the year and 1 to 2 billion by the end of next year. They're going to be having a slant towards UK companies, companies in various flavors, and they want to allocate about 30 to 35% of the fund's value to UK companies. This is sort of the start of a somewhat trend moving more towards British companies, and also this private equity sort of play, which I'm not a fan of. I don't believe it has any place in traditional, typical portfolios. Global equity funds do all the returns you want, and you understand them, and they're clean, they're liquid, etc. They're cheap. Yeah, this is not a good place for me, thinking the clients should be parking their money. But any thoughts on this?
I second your thought. Maybe LNG are trying to be in front of the curve here, because as you say, the
price come in.
This has been. It seems to me that both government and the private equity industry has suddenly woken up to the fact that there's trillions of pounds in retail pension funds, and they've conjured up a story to say, "Oh, we could have some of that." That's quite attractive to us. I've looked at this quite a lot in the past, and I've yet to see any evidence that on a risk-adjusted basis, because if you understand, you lift a lid on private equity funds, you use a lot of leverage, lots of kind of creative tactics to generate their returns. So that you've got to build that into your risk adjustment, if you like, versus buying long-only public market funds. And they're costly. All these brain surgeons running around sort of with their PhDs in economics and everything else, doing all this kind of financial manipulation. They don't come cheap. So I'm trying to think for your average punter in a UK workplace pension scheme, with the additional cost, additional risk, additional leverage, what are they hoping to achieve? It's Yeah, in fact, I'll come on to that. I've got a point related to this. We'll come on in a moment or two. But it's complexity for the sake of complexity. I'm not sure it's going to meet the desired end goal. The desired end goal is to get more money into the UK economy. Make it an investable economy, please.
Again, there's some further information in the article. It said the fund would unlock private market access. We all know that that's a sort of a honey trap for the investing illiterate. For 5.2 million members of modern defined contribution schemes, and would help to meet its Mansion House Compact pledge.
That's what I'm talking about. This is this thing about going
private
British
equity. Sorry,
yeah, exactly. That's the current
Mansion House Compact pledge.
Yeah,
is in relation to 5% of assets in private equity. I mean,
yeah, but
are they going to be required to do that?
No member of a workplace pension has ever asked for this. That's the point, and it's their money.
Oh, they're all asking for it, Alan. I know Bob down at the Tesco's. He's all over it.
But Tesco's saying, Nick, if only I could get access to private markets,
private equity,
UK private equity markets.
If I could put 5% of my portfolio in private equity, I can retire 3 years earlier. Said no employee.
No,
ever.
I think we should keep our eye on this because it seems like large institutions and politicians are eyeing up this as a tasty opportunity for them, and we're here to protect them.
This seems to be ticking two boxes: the diversion or transfer of money to private equity and more British-focused assets. So yeah, it's very relevant at the moment. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying it's very relevant.
That's not how capitalism works. It's not how.
No. Let's see. Well, okay, it's an interesting.
The invisible hand.
Let's see if this develops. I'm sure it will do. Okay, Smithy, Trap Tough Mudder team.
Right,
do you want to talk about this? And if you do you want to talk about it quickly?
On the theme of Vanguard, mentioned by Della Voce a moment ago, Vanguard run a thing called a Tough Mudder. Do you know what a Tough Mudder is, Nicholas?
Yes.
Yeah, I've done one. Yeah. It's a killer, absolute killer. Yeah. It was worse than the marathon for me.
Right, Vanguard run one. They apparently hundreds and hundreds of companies enter it. Lots of advisors. Financial services one. It's on the 20th of September, and I had an idea that we'd enter a trap team to this financial services Tough Mudder. So first of all, I'm bringing it. Publicly announcing it. We're kicking it around. We're building in public, or not, as the case may be. Vanguard have asked us if we'd like to enter a team, and I'm thinking we probably should. So first of all, I'll put a call out to any Trappist, anyone who's watching or listening to this. If you're up for this, if you're into this kind of madness, it's only 5k, so it's a quick one, but through barbed wire and mud and all sorts of shit. But if you're interested in
full of ice,
sounds like a trap pack night out.
If you which is birthday. If you're interested in representing Trap at the Vanguard Tough Mudder and going for a few beers afterwards, then get in touch with Nick, because Nick's organising the whole thing.
Get stuff, Smithy.
How are they going to get in contact with us?
Is there a limit to how big the team can be?
No,
because we.
I don't know. We'll cap it off if we get 100. But
you bloody wish, Nick. What do you mean? I mean, you think you're going to be inundated and you're going to be of like 245 people?
Is it 20? Is it 15? Is it 10? I've got no idea.
Cross that bridge when we get the first 5 applicants.
Yeah.
But Nick, are you up for it, Nick? Are you up for doing it?
I'd do it. I would like to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
So you're going to publicly
I mean, Andrew's let his body go to rack and ruin, but I'm in tip-top shape, so I'm up for it like that, mate. Yeah, crack on.
Andy, you'll do it. We'll all do it.
I'll be preparing for it on the old chin-up bar.
I'll be the non-playing captain.
All right, so you'll be there for it. So we might do it. So watch this space, because we'd like to enter a team in September, and as part of our community work.
Are we going to make a decision? Are the 4 of us going to do it, or three of the 4 of us going to do this?
I may have committed last week under the influence.
You did.
I may have. I'm reconsidering.
Okay, I'm going to set it up on. I'm going to the Vanguard site today or tomorrow and set
enter a team. And if anyone else wants to join us and be part of the team, please do.
Because, I'm glad we discuss all these things offline before we.
Well, I sent you a WhatsApp last week when you were enjoying your birthday.
Come on, let's crack on. Okay, let's move on to the next unattributed item on the docket. I'm not even going to read it out. Probably Mr. Smith.
I think it's Smithy.
Yeah,
DFA.
in response to, these are all organisations that we love and support and respect, but dimensional fund advisors. It's funny that these organisations have, they obviously, in many ways, they compete with each other. In our business, I think they complement each other quite well. And it's funny that Vanguard's resources are called 365, and Dimensionals, I can't remember which way around it was. Dimensionals are called Dimensional 360. So Dimensional have got this, again, all available on the website and downloadable, DFA 360 business strategy. So tons of things about practice management, how to run a successful, probably aimed at the more mature business as opposed to someone who's just entering into the business in the first place, but loads of practice management stuff, how to scale, how to grow, how to attract and retain talent. They've got a podcast on this very subject, the DFA practice management. And they do a lot of work on and we might have mentioned this before, but client communications. So you can get, nice downloadable PDFs, documents, graphs, PowerPoint presentations, things that you can use. And some of them are branded Dimensional, and some you can put your own branding on it yourself and free to use with clients for client communication. I was looking at it the other day. I thought, wow, this is a really, really useful resource. Point of the story, we have no shortage of helpful resources to help us build businesses, communicate with clients, do all the right things. And both those organizations, shout out to both of them. They do some excellent work. So do check out Dimensional 360 business strategy material. Andrew?
If you are a younger advisor and sort of quite into the investment side of this business, then it's definitely worth checking out the DFA Dimensional Fund Advisors Returns book. It used to be printed, published every single year, around about sort of March, April, I think it used to come out. Now it's a PDF. Do try and get your hands on that. It's history of investing. It's brilliant. It's the best book you're going to find on the data around investing. And if you're into that, then great. You might have a couple of clients that are, but if not, check it out. Back to you, Nick.
Okay. Carl, voice. Another voice has hit Ireland, a real voice.
Yes, yeah. I'm not really sure what this has got to do with this podcast.
No,
but I said
I'd put it in. Four of us are thinking this.
So Taylor Swift has hit Ireland over the last few days and has literally taken Ireland by storm. So packed out the Aviva Stadium, I think 3 nights in a row. Wow. There was literally people queuing up to be outside the stadium to listen to her music, right? To universal applause. Everybody has said it has been an amazing show. And what I thought was so here's somebody who lots of people would say, oh, I don't like the music or whatever. But here's someone with a whole load of talent, but clearly knows how to market really well. And clearly works really, really hard. And continues to do the work, knows her audience so well. And I just thought, you know what? That's what we're all trying to build. We're all trying to build a respected brand, but it doesn't come easily. And it's not something that, we're asked so many times about, are there magic bullets here? Are there shortcuts you can take to build in financial planning practices? There aren't. So look at the absolute best case scenario is a Taylor Swift who's made $1 billion out of her music alone. But she clearly is a brilliant marketeer, has clearly a massive team of marketeers around her. But behind everything else is a massive, massive work ethic. And I think all the young folks could learn lots from that. And I'd also like to shout out to my daughter, Emma, who went to see her last night and said it was literally the best night of her life. So there you go. Taylor Swift.
Is a class act. Agreed.
Yeah.
100%. That tour apparently is going to gross $3.5 billion. Incredible numbers. And the FT did an article on it last week from an economic viewpoint. You see little bumps in the local economies in Dublin, London last weekend, Paris, various other places. Imagine all the people who are booking hotels, traveling, hotels, accommodation, eating out, the whole thing, the whole industry. The whole economy is by her.
Apparently, Alan, she brought more to Dublin last weekend, just gone, than St. Patrick's Day Festival does to Ireland. So that'll tell you. She to give you wow. How big is this, right? So she books out the Aviva Stadium, and for her merchandise, they book out the 3 Arena, right, which holds 30,000 people. So that's where they so all just the Swifties had to go had to queue up in the 3 Arena, which holds 35,000 people, I think. Buy our merch there, and then you go to the Aviva Stadium. It's just absolutely incredible stuff. Yeah.
So
anyway,
again, the power of building a community. That'll be us. That'll be Trap Live in 2029.
Chill,
Or not.
We scraped 150
go
people
get your
together,
beer. Go get your beer in the 3 Arena, and then join us at the Aviva
Our
Stadium.
merch space will be a wonky picnic table.
Yeah.
With a mug on it.
With one mug on it with a broken handle. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. Right. Moving perhaps back to financial services in a more direct way, but good point well made, Watch. Debbie Condon's letter of authority guide. We've talked about it before, and how I've talked about it. Really, really good guide. It was a PDF. So if you haven't heard about this, it tells you every provider where to send the letters of authority to by email, whether they accept DocuSign or not, what you need to put in the letter of authority. Really good. She's giving it away for free. Debbie Condon, who, of course, works at Intuitive Support Services. Well, the guide's going online now, so it's going to be an online, totally up-to-date, all-the-time guide to letters of authority, and she's charging just £4 a month plus VAT, so it's a bit of a no-brainer. And between you and me, I think Debbie's underpricing it, but I also think Debbie listens to this podcast, so it's no longer between you and me. There we go. So check out those. I'll put a link to that in the so-called show notes.
That's good. I'm wondering if, do you know, I mentioned a Trap Live, and I keep hearing from my team that it's working really well. This outfit called Pension Lab, I think they're called, all to do with this LOA, the LOA kind of mystery, the thing that bogs the entire sector down, where they have automated this. I'm not sure how that interacts, or whether they have their own version of what Debbie does. I don't know, but LOAs used to be the bane of our life, and now they're relatively straightforward. So that's all good.
DocuSign again. DocuSign's changed so much. Made it so much less painful. Okay,
yeah, that's right. So
listen, we're at 40.
Linking that wasn't my point. Linking what you said a moment ago about private equity getting an institutional. There was an article. There's a company called what are they called? I can't remember. But they're a US.
IFA.com.
This is compelling listening. This really is.
IFA.com. But I was trying to think what it stands for, because it's not IFA the way that we know about it. It's a US financial advisor, but they're a huge RIA, I think you call it, in the US. And they produce a volume of content. They've got blogs, articles.
Index fund advisors.
Index fund advisors. That's it. So IFA.com, good domain name. And I think Robin Powell works with them. But they produce really a lot of data and information, which is very interesting and very compelling. The latest one that came out, and again, recommend anyone who's interested in reading this stuff and applying it to their own sort of clients and situation, go to IFA.com, subscribe for their blog. But they did an analysis, and we all deal with like retail clients, families, all that sort of stuff. But it's quite interesting looking at the institutional side when you've got public sector, things like public sector pension schemes that we kind of alluded to before. And they give you a couple of examples of the amount of money that has got the Canadian pension fund, for example, which is huge. Used to be about 200 people, is now about 2,500 people. And the net effect of that is they've actually underperformed the market to the tune of about $100 billion.
Isn't that what I talked about last episode? That was the point. It was a different article, but that was the thing I was talking about, wasn't it? The Canadian pension scheme.
That was
how they went from index to back to active. They made the switch the other way, which is hardly ever done.
Right. Yeah, you did talk about. I think this is expanded on it a bit more, because they also talk.
Right.
They talk about the number of people that are in that industry, and there's now thousands and thousands of them. Net effect, you're worse off than. But did you mention the Nevada pension fund, which was the alternative? No, because this is the funniest thing of all. So all these other huge, with literally thousands and thousands of people, all doing interesting things to try to get a good return for their millions of pension investors. The Nevada State Pension Fund has got how many staff? One. It's got one guy who just buys index funds. And it's ironic that that's where Las Vegas is based. And he outperforms a lot of them. You just said his work's done every day.
More people, worse returns, yeah. More people, worse returns.
It's an incredible. I posted a link to the article. It's a really good article which breaks down all this stuff, all the money wasted, and how to do it more simply. So take a leaf out of the Nevada Pension Fund's book. That's it.
Very good, very good. Right, crikey, 40 8 minutes in, and we've only just finished off the topical tidbit. So let's crack on to the meat and potatoes of the show. And this is an emotive subject, certainly emotive for the four of us, because I think we're slightly out on a limb here compared to a lot of people in this thing of ours. Risk profiling. Some of us in this group think it's I'll say I certainly do think it is the biggest scandal of the last 30 years or so. The tick box mentality, the amount of money that has just been squandered or lost, not picked up by retail investors because they were put into a certain type of portfolio because they ticked some boxes they didn't understand and were too embarrassed to say to their advisor, I don't really know what the hell this is. I've just gone for these, Anyway, I'm not going to lead off on this. I could easily do it, as you can see. Storyteller, you're going to lead off on this, I do believe. Muted.
It was all going so well.
Jesus wept.
Go.
I'm in a different location. I'm struggling now on my usual.
You're in a different world, mate.
Yeah.
World of pain. Come on.
It's like you're in outer Mongolia.
So this came across came to my attention again. This is something that we all speak about quite a lot. But a gentleman by the name of Mark Fenton O'Creevy contacted me via by X, Twitter, online a couple of weeks ago, and he just sort of tagged me into a paper. Now, Mr. Fenton O'Creevy is a professor of behavioral finance, and organizational finance, but basically he's a sort of learned professor at a university, and he and his colleagues have written a paper. It's been out for a while, but it's the first time I'd seen it. It's the largest research study of its type ever done in the UK. There's loads of these things that come out in the US, as we know. This is a UK-based one, and they have obviously researched and analyzed thousands of people and have identified the reasons as to why they've, the various investment returns that they had received. And of course, what this paper does is confirm what we've all been saying for years, is that short-term volatility is not risk, and your behavior will generate your long-term success in the investment markets. Pretty basic stuff, but it's like, whoa, he's an academic who's actually saying this with proper, rigorous evidence and research to support it. I think I shared it, I put it on LinkedIn, and then Nick made a comment on it as well, and it got a lot of support from the advisor community. And the more we think about it, again, just to echo what Nick's just said, the more you think about some of the scandals that have happened in the past, and even the thing that Carl was talking about, there's only a handful of people have actually been, and it's terrible that they have, but it's not the entire nation.
Yes.
This is something which impacts every single retail investor.
Millions of people.
Millions of people actually around the world, but we'll focus on the UK and Ireland for the time being.
Yeah.
Millions of just normal people who, and the people who advise them as well, and we include ourselves because we're all part of this story. But
we used to believe it. Yeah.
Well, it's clear that we've all been hoodwinked. Now, some of us have understood this sooner than others. Some people are still embracing and drinking the Kool-Aid. And some people are still asking their clients to fill out a risk profiling questionnaire that asks them how much pain they can live with before they start screaming, and giving them that amount of pain, whether they like it or not, or need it or not. And it's ticking all the compliance boxes, and you never get sort of criticized for it from a regulator or a compliance consultant. And there's billions of pounds being made by the aforementioned regulators, compliance consultants, risk people, etc. And net, millions of families are going to be worse off financially, and therefore in every other aspect of their life, than they would have been had they understood it and had their advisors understood this a bit better. And it is, in our private group, we all get very annoyed and angry about it, because it really is, it's lethal, and it's caused so much damage to so many people. I know you've got a lot to say on this, Ultra. What's your take?
Yeah, I got a couple of points, and then obviously a few people can chip in. Yeah, it is a regulatory requirement. We need to get it done with our clients, but there's sort of good, the bad, and the ugly within it. My first question is, risk profiling tools or risk surveys, what problem are they trying to fix? That's my first question, someone that sort of creates it. I believe there's 4 flavors of risk. Loss of capital, very important. Inflation, very important. Volatility, which is what everyone focuses on. And then low returns. Low returns is the risk that nobody talks about, but this is the real risk when you're in the wrong portfolio, that you're going to get low returns over the years. So once if you're in the wrong portfolio at, let's say, 35 and you're going to retire at 65, you've left a lot of money on the table. And the three sort of areas that they want us to assess with our clients, the first area is attitude to risk. I don't really think it is attitude to risk. It's more like attitude to volatility, because again, the word risk needs to be unpacked. Next up, they say capacity for loss. Global equities don't lose money, so the guns are facing in the wrong direction. Like, what loss are you talking about? You know, I've been looking after clients' money for 16 years. Not one of my clients has ever lost any money. The portfolios they've been in have always produced returns.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy, he knows about everything. Andy can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart!
Again, the peddlers of risk surveys and compliance can't get their head around this capacity for loss. What loss are you talking about? In 16 years, none of my clients have ever had a loss. The next point they bring up is knowledge and experience. If we pander to people, they're never going to learn. You know, these 3 points are intellectually bankrupt. We've got to try and make clients better investors. And coming out with 3 categories of cautious, balanced, and adventurous. You know, what maniac came up with these horrendous names? I believe risk profilers are also misconception mirrors. What's the point in working with the professional, filling in a questionnaire and ending up in a bad portfolio that you naturally would have ended up in when we're involved? So yeah, it's asset misallocation on an astronomical scale. Just a point in time. Remember March 2022 in the market temporarily declined by minus 35%. Apparently everybody's capacity for loss was triggered. What happened? Absolutely nothing. So the people that were banging on about capacity for loss being triggered, it got triggered. And what happened? They're taking no historical accountability. Oh, we got it wrong. You know, we got it wrong. You know, there's never any mention of people, the correct thing to do during market declines is not sell. So they don't, you know, hammer home on the behavioural side of it. You know, why work with a professional if you're going to end up in an amateur's portfolio? So yeah, I say it time and time again, the best portfolio is the one that the client will stick with, that has the highest allocation to global equities. And over time, through their behaviour, being patient and calm, I believe we can nudge them up the global equity scale. Creating wealth, I've got no problem with creating wealth. It's almost like we're financial advisors, but we intentionally don't want to create great returns for our clients. You know, more money, more opportunity, more freedom. So a few points there. I believe most risk profilers are not very good. I've created my own one. I call it a personal investment profile. Clients fill it in. I have conversations with clients, and I also share my informed risk video with them. So that's my starter. Over to Carl or Nick.
Oh, you muted.
I'll go. Yeah, I'm not anymore. Look, they're great points, and like you can tell, this gets Andy riled up, and he has. I think you've made some really, really fantastic points there. I'm just a little bit more commercial about it because I have to be. Okay, so just let me try and explain. There is an element of you have to be very mindful of central bank regulations here, compliance, and yes, you do have to tick the boxes. So I'm not going to ever say that they're totally irrelevant or that we don't do them, because absolutely we do them for every single client. What I would say is it's like the answer to every question. It's if you do the financial plan properly, then that allows you to engage in constructive conversations with the clients. Because I think with the financial plan, if you're talking to a 50-year-old and you're talking 30, 40, 50-year time horizons, and you can identify, well, what's the short-term money requirement? What's the kind of 0 to 3 years? What's the medium term? What's the long term? Whatever. I think that allows, even the most, so our risk profile is 0 to 7, right? I know this is all, we wouldn't agree with this, but if you come out at a 3 or a 4, well, look, let's actually dive in and talk about this a little bit more. So you identify what money is needed short term, and then what's needed after that, and then you talk about, well, let's look at the historical returns from whether it's a 100% equity portfolio or it's an 80-20 or a 60-40, but let's look at those returns. And if you focus in, I think, on the lowest 1 year return, and Dimensional Fairness do great stuff on this, right? So you can say, okay, well, if you were in an 80-20 portfolio, the lowest 1 year return is, picking a figure off the top of my head, 38% in 2008-9. But here's what the long-term returns are. I think that's how you can bring the client along on the journey and do that education piece, Andy. And I totally agree that, why would you allow someone go into, as we would say, a suboptimal portfolio when they've got you? But your job is to bring them on the journey. And I would be a little bit less, maybe dogmatic is the word, about, how we go about this. And obviously I have to be mindful of, there's a good few people who met us advising clients. So we have to kind of formulate our strategies and our steps of the stairs and how we go about doing this.
Yeah, of course.
So look, I agree with everything that you've said, but I might just do it a little bit. I might just be a little bit less kind of dogmatic. Yeah, sorry for using that word again about it, but I agree.
Sure, we have to work within, the regulatory environment that we're all working in. I, as a guesstimate, I think at least I'd guesstimate that 90% of clients end up in a band between 60 and 80% global equities. My God, we have overcomplicated to get to that answer. I believe 90% of advised clients end up between 60, 70 and 80% global equities in that sort of slice. We've got them to fill in, 5 different questionnaires, tested out stochastic modelling system. It's insane just to get to a portfolio number.
I'd say it's much less. Sorry for interrupting, Andy. I'd say it's much less here, and I think one of the
what do you
biggest
mean much less, Carl? What do you mean? Sorry,
in terms of the less inequities, and I think one of the
is it
I would. I'm sorry now. That's I'm assuming that, right? And I think one of the problems we have here is that people who come out at 2 or 3 out of 7, right, and we don't then have the conversations. They are sold these guaranteed tracker bonds. Now that's a crime.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think in the UK, I think there'd be there or thereabouts. Even like a balanced portfolio has between sort of 50 and 75% in global equities. But yeah, anyone who fills them in is just going to end up with a whole chunk of fixed income, which may or may not be right. But again, we should try and make people better investors rather than give them low returns long term. Over to you, Nick.
Some really, really good points on what is a surprisingly emotive subject, because it sounds very dry on paper, but it's so endemic, this problem. It's difficult to know where to start. Really, Alan's point is very well made about you give these people a form, and then you design a portfolio that gives them just the amount of pain they think they can take. Well, what kind of profession would ever do that to people? I can see it perhaps if you're like a robo advisor or like an old school industrial kind of IFA, just churning out products, and you want something to cover your back. But if you've got an advisory relationship with people you like, as Andy has said very strongly, you don't pander to them. This condescending view that these people are cretins and need to be put in a portfolio that somehow matches up to these questions they didn't even understand. No, we're here to educate people and to guide them through it and to talk them through it. I acquired a client last year, husband and wife. Husband, I talked about something before on track, but I'll go through it again. Really bright guy, super sharp guy, delegator, high earner, time scarce, perfect client. Him and his wife, perfect clients. He worked for a large communications company in the UK that sell mobile phones. He was in their money purchase scheme. He's 39 now, so he joined the scheme when he was 29, 10 years ago. When he was 29, he's funneling away loads of money. He's a big earner, picking up the maximum company contribution from the employer as well. And all that time, he's been in a portfolio that caps equity exposure at 40%. And it's criminal. For a start, he was 29 when he started this. He's going into a plan he can't even access until he's 55 under the legislation then. Now it's going to be 57 for him. So who cares what it does? And I said to him, do you remember why you chose this plan? He couldn't remember why. He couldn't remember how he was in it. He didn't even know. Why would he know? It's not his day job. But he's in this. He must have filled out some risk assessment questionnaire 10 years ago. He put in this dog fund, really, that has just barely. No, it's underperformed inflation over the time period. Underperformed inflation. That's how bad it is. This thing. Just and we all know over the last 10 years, we pretty much had a really good bull market, and it's just like and I did the maths, there's hundreds of thousands of pounds that he could have had more of in his pension fund, literally hundreds of thousands of pounds. Now, this is not about people accreting money for its own sake, because as we've always said, those kind of people are sad and boring and never have enough. But what we want to do is give people choices. Money is about choices, right? And if you have choices, then life is easier for you. If you don't have money, other people tend to make choices about your life, and you don't tend to have control over it. If you have more money, you have more choice over your life, and that's really what we want. It's an enabler, and these bloody attitude to risk questionnaires, just so you can say, "Oh, I've ticked the compliance box," and all this. I don't know how people sleep at night. I do not know how people sleep at night with them. I think they're an outrage. And like Andy, I've got a very light one. I think it's 4 questions, just to make sure I'm not dealing with a moron. But that, and it's the discussion point.
What are the 4 questions? First name, surname, email address, mobile number.
Email address. And if your portfolio fell by 30%, what would it be worth? If it's 500 grand, what would it be worth? And just to make sure they're literate with number.
Do you agree? I'm right.
Back to your
financial plan. The financial plan drives the portfolio. No portfolio without a plan. You know, it's this whole thing. It's like Andy and I ran a buoyant user group online thing last Friday, and it was still coming up, capacity for loss. How do you model it? This kind of thing. And I was thinking, oh God. What most people are investing because they have to. They can't afford not to invest. So actually, the least risky thing to do is invest in the great companies of the world. Because if you leave your money in low return assets or cash in a 3-decade retirement, you're going to get eaten alive, and that's almost a guaranteed return. That's a guaranteed outcome. So we're just trying to prevent that. The least risky thing you can do over a 3, 4, 5 decade saving and spending life is stick it in the great companies of the world. You know,
words and framing are just so important, and we've allowed these people, organizations or whatever, to own the narrative. So as has been mentioned before, risk is short-term, risk is not volatility, right? Risk is not being able to pay your grocery bills in the latter years of a 30-year retirement because you were 40% allocated to equities when you're 20.
And a lot of real people will run into that problem because they filled in a questionnaire 30 years prior.
Risk is going back to your children and asking them if they can help.
Asking for money.
If you can help them because your pension fund doesn't quite pay enough because 3 decades previously, somebody didn't have the balls to have a conversation with you, have a grown-up debate and explain to you the consequences and the benefits of doing this.
There is billions and billions and billions in default funds at workplace pensions. Back to your point, Nick, your real-life client example, that is what I call a 6-figure tick box. Had he ticked the right box at age 29, as you said, he would have been hundreds of thousands of pounds better off. That's a 6-figure tick box to tick one box. It's insane. He got no help at that time. So now you've come into his life and obviously nudged him to invest in the right fund at work, which is going to create another load of 6 figures in the future because he's invested in the right fund because you've spoken to him like a grown-up and explained that returns all come from global equities.
But imagine if the tick box said, do you want a high return fund or a lower return fund? Which one?
Yeah.
Right? That's a starting point. That's a starting point.
Yep.
So you go, I'll have a high return fund, and then the next thing you say,
it's slightly more volatile. It
goes up and down, but you're not touching it for 20 years, but it's a little bit more volatile as you go through.
I'll give you the actual data on this, The last 10 years, 100% global equity fund versus a 20% global equity fund. If you started off with £10,000 in the 100% global equities versus 20% global equities, if you started off with £10,000, today you'd have £25,000 in your 100% global equity portfolio. In your 20% global equity portfolio, you have 13,000. The gain of 100% global equities is 15,000 from a starter of 10. The gain from 20% global equities is 3,000 from a starter of 10. The returns are 5 times as much. That's real data from 100% global equities versus 20% global equities. There's real money that people are leaving on the table, and it requires no change of their behavior or lifestyle. They don't need to do anything or pay more money in. It's a temperamental thing where they have to be calmer, having a higher allocation to global equities. The money is there, and you're right. Creating money for the sake of it is not cool. But then you have more freedom, more opportunity, and you can do stuff with it. So it is an absolute travesty.
That is a great point. And you know what I think? The more I think about this is these tools and templates and regulations have been devised by institutions who are so far removed from the end customer, they think they're doing them a favor. Because you just quoted some numbers there, and it just there's some numbers, and they are around the level you might expect if you were an informed person in this sector.
Oh, sorry. To close that story off.
But the point of it is how that impacts on your life. So we are the ones who are in the inner circle of the family's life, and that's the point. So the people that are creating these questionnaires are not. So we're seeing the impact of that between having 3 times the return, 3 times the amount. That is the difference between having, an extra holiday, helping your grandchildren, paying the extra VAT on your grandkids' school fees, and being barely able to afford to live yourself. That's the real life impact for real families.
Oh, sorry. These investing illiterates that create these things, as I mentioned, the 100% global equity portfolio versus the 20% global equity portfolio. The ridiculousness is they call the 100% global equity portfolio, they call that high risk. All it does is create wealth. They call this one low risk. It's totally mad. In my world, that's high risk. The one that produces no returns. That's the real risk. Low returns. That's the problem. That's what I'm trying to fight.
Yes, it's a mess, and I do appreciate as well. If you work like Carl says, he's got quite a big team now. It's growing all the time. And if you're an IFA working within a firm, or you're a Trappist listening to this and you work within an IFA firm, you might be told what to do. But as much as you humanly can, make the risk assessment question. If you have to use it, just the starting point for an informed conversation where you begin the process. And it's a never-ending process. It never finishes of educating the clients about how markets work.
Most advisors follow the result verbatim.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Insane.
And by the way, I think regardless of what sort of size you are as a business, it's reasonable because you've got to have a framework to follow these things. But it doesn't mean, and that's the key thing, that the advisor, regardless of whether there's 1, 3, 5, 10, 1,000 advisors in the company, has to then just say, right, you're a 6 out of 10. I'll give you a 6 out of 10. You've added 0 value then through that conversation. So you need to that's the starting point. That's your framework. And now let's have a grown-up conversation.
It's the financial plan. The financial plan all the time tells you,
I don't have
where the money should go.
I don't have the data from other large asset managers or DFMs, but I have read the St James's Place annual report. And as a big firm, close to 200 billion, I think the global equity allocation is around about 70%. And that is impressive considering how large they are. I don't know what other asset managers and DFMs, what their percentages are.
Agreed.
But again, it's another term that is used to trap the wealthy. Wealth preservation. Why on earth would you want to preserve your money? You want to grow it, but again, it's another honey trap for the wealthy illiterates. Wealth preservation.
Okay, I think. Listen, we're at 70 minutes odd. I think we've given that. I think we're all of a voice, and I hope people listening. They have the Trappists out there. This mate, for those of you who perhaps were doing it in a way that we think is not that great in terms of client outcomes, just give it some thought. Give it some thought because it's just flat out wrong. And also, imagine being parents and going to your children and asking for money. It's agony for the parents, but it's agony for the children. My parents have asked my brother and I for money because they're running out, and we both said no. We said you ticked that box 40 years ago. That's on your shoulders, not ours. So let's move on because I can see coming up the drive is guess who? Yes, you know who it is, Trappist. It's Posty. She's hauling the. There we go. There's the front door, but she's hauling the bulging sack of Trappist questions sent in via the link in the so-called show notes and or on the pinned tweet in X. That doesn't make any sense to us, does it? So please do submit your questions. We are getting through them one by one, and I'm going to open up this first one here in an absolute moment if I can actually find what I'm looking for, which is there. Let's just get the letter opener out. There we go. And this is from Catherine, who is retraining as an IFA. She's got her LinkedIn profile there, Catherine, and we'll put that in the so-called show notes. And she says, my God, I'm not on Twitter. Okay, Catherine, point made. Love the podcasts. If joining the industry makes me as funny as you guys, I'm in. You speak a lot about what people invest in, equities, but less about the wrapper and why tax drives people to obtain advice. But that's what I see happening in a lot of leads that come in. Will you cover pensions, IHT, or possibly even do an episode or two focusing on tax and how financial advice can be so powerful for many? Who wants to go?
This is somewhat interesting because we say to clients we're not tax advisors as such, but we talk about tax all the time with our clients. So it's a bit of a weird grey area as financial advisors. Tax is massively important and it drives a shed load of our advice, guidance, and planning. In terms of to do an episode on it, I probably don't think we will. I don't know. It's sort of plumbing and admin sort of stuff.
We can do. My take on this is our role is pretty fundamental tax planning. There are some more sophisticated requirements that people have got complex situations, overseas income, all that stuff. That is the remit. I don't know whether Catherine's retraining from accountancy, hence her interest in the subject. The key thing that we keep talking about...
No, I had a look at her profile. I had a look at her profile on LinkedIn. She was in... sorry, Catherine. Catherine, you were in, I believe, property management.
Okay.
She did spend some time in an auditing function as well. Yeah.
All right. It's Andy calls it plumbing. It is integral to the... What we come back to, and hence the name of this podcast, is planning. It's planning. There is investment. There is tax advice. There is consultations. There's all sorts of other things going on, but it's a kind of... It's an artistic endeavor in many ways, supported by some technical components that are required as and when. We might do one on estate planning, maybe in the future, inheritance tax.
I don't think we should.
Okay.
I don't think we should because there's lots of different people from different jurisdictions listening to this, and I don't think we could serve them all. We might actually end up confusing people. And I suppose the other thing that we all need to be careful of is that we don't cross that line of actually giving tax advice. We want to work with tax advisors. We obviously need to know and want to know the rules. That's very important. But we aren't tax advisors at the end of the day.
Yeah, we say that, Carl. We aren't tax advisors. Massive conversations we have with clients are all around tax. All around tax. I'm sure it's very similar in Ireland. I know we're not tax advisors, and if they wanted some really specific advice about closing down a limited company to find out what the tax position or something, obviously we would point them in a different direction. But we know a lot about tax and obviously have lots of conversations with our clients about tax. I think it helps it with business owners ourselves and pay a load of tax here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right, but there's no chance I'm going to be involved in a podcast that's giving out tax advice.
Oh, no, I get that. I'm just saying our real life work with clients.
At the risk of speaking for the Trap Pack, I think the sort of unspoken ethos of this show is that we talk about the stuff that you can't easily Google. And tax stuff, if you want tax stuff, it's out there, isn't it? And there are seminars left, right, and centre, and the providers will give, we talk about it as part of the financial planning. But I think Catherine, we're probably going to steer clear of going into the weeds on inheritance tax per se. Mainly because I know nothing about it. Right, thank you. Thank you for your question. Please do submit them. But without any further ado, as we come to 75
based on what
minutes,
you just said, your parents won't be paying any either. Based on what you just said.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's
not
the
a good
upside.
thing.
That's the upside of having parents live under the railway bridge now. You haven't got to deal with Spanish property taxes. And the weather's quite warm out there, so they're fine in the bridge. We sent them out 2 sleeping bags. What more do you want? We love them. Right, let's move on. Culture Corner. Let's crack on. Hope this works. Fingers crossed. Okie dokie, I'm going to go first, and this is from the Financial Services Recruitment Podcast, very catchy title, like that one, rolls off the tongue. A link to it in the show notes, and on there, the interviewee was Dave Robinson. You might know Dave Robinson, those of you who hang around LinkedIn. He's got a bit of a slight case of St. James's Place derangement syndrome. It's a very long episode, but from 1 hour, 35 minutes in, you can hear Dave Robinson's views on St. James's Place, and he doesn't hold back, and he's quite lucid. It's interesting listening, and I quite enjoyed it. I don't know if you guys have had the time to listen to that or not. No, okay. And secondly, nothing to do with financial services, but
I listened. You sent the link to us from. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but for 1 hour 35.
Yeah,
and he does. He's got a real bee in his bonnet, hasn't he? I don't know quite why, but. He articulates it very well, very clearly. But he's got a real issue with the largest wealth management firm in the UK, and we've talked about this in the past on this podcast. They're certainly not perfect, that organisation, but I think there are, as to use Ultra's quote, the guns could be pointing in a different direction, and linking our new sponsors to this podcast, Posh DFM. We've talked about a lot, again privately, about some of these so-called wealth managers, discretionary fund managers that, at least to my knowledge, and
I've met
quite a few SJP, whatever they are, partners, advisors. The ones I've met have been pretty good, actually very good in some cases, very client focused, do real financial planning. They might not have the best investment solutions at the moment, but compared to some of these other companies that I do see when we win business from them, and you sort of lift the lid on their investment portfolios, there is zero planning. There is just a load of cost, and I would be happy. I'd be paying more attention to those people as being rent seekers in our industry rather than the SJP, yeah, like everyone else. And they're far from perfect, but
Agreed.
There's bigger problems, is my opinion. But yes, I did listen to him. He's very articulate. He's very sort of credible, Dave, when he explains his position. But yeah, there's others.
Okay, and I'm squeezing two, and I'm doing an ultra this week. Is Aid Edmondson. I'm doing my Hatchet Best Age coming out tomorrow about Aid Edmondson, believe it or not. But it's an episode of Desert Island Discs from last year, I think, and it's just, if you like, the young ones. Obviously, we know for the young ones. I'm not sure if the young ones ever made it to Ireland, Carl. But it's a really good podcast. And about 2/3 of the way through, he talks about falling out with Rick Mail. They weren't really speaking when Rick Mail died, which I didn't know about. But he was a pallbearer at Rick Mail's funeral, and he just burst into tears. And if you listen to that and you don't well up a little bit, you've got to be pretty cold. It's really, really good. And I just really liked him at the end of the podcast. There we go. There'll be a link to that in the so-called show notes as well. Next one.
Next one is me. This is a link to YouTube. Roger Federer, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, has done a commencement speech at Dartmouth University in America. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've got a bit of a thing with Federer. I think he's 6 days younger than me. Obviously, he's far more successful, far wealthier.
Is that obvious? Did we know that? Okay.
You didn't know that, no. 6 days younger than me. It's a great talk. I would check it out. I might be talking about it, actually, at this year's Humans Under Management conference. He mentions a lot of really, really useful things. Anyway, check it out in the show notes. Commencement address by Roger Federer. He's very nervous giving the speech. So,
he's not his comfort zone, is it? And
he's very much out of his comfort zone.
His backhand is very similar to mine. I don't know if anyone's noticed that. Right. Next on the docket is...
me.
Oh,
Nick.
Straight in.
Nick, you would love the Happy Place podcast by Fern Cotton. You would really, really love it. It's... I listen to it a lot. I think she's really engaging, and sometimes it's nice to listen to other stuff. Anyway, this particular episode is an interview she did with a BBC broadcaster called Ashley John Baptiste. I never heard of him, don't know who he is, but it's a really engaging episode. And I suppose now that I've hit the big 50, I've had a lot of reflection over the last while. And I suppose I did a LinkedIn post actually that went, you guys are all very used to your stuff going viral, but for me, it definitely went viral. And it was just about just being grateful for what you have. And if you listen to this podcast episode, this guy had it tough, really, really, really tough. And I think gratitude is the attitude. So I would encourage everybody, number one, to be grateful for what you have, because if you're working in this absolutely amazing profession, you are one of the lucky ones.
Well said.
And
well said.
Number two, there are lots of people not nearly as well off. So be very grateful. Listen to The Happy Place with Fern Cotton.
Well, how lovely was that? Next.
Very good, Carl. Back in the world of the cut and thrust of the commercial world. I think all of us here and everyone listening to this podcast is keen to evolve and grow, ambitious, grow their business, grow their revenue, grow all those good things. Some of you will know that I've written books on marketing in the past. Drum roll. Checkbooks. That was Ultra who invented that. I've written that. So we've all of us have spent. Well, maybe
I stole that from Alan Sugar.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, that was instantaneous. Yeah. Well done.
I didn't give him notice.
It's about as quick as getting a microphone that works.
Yeah.
Crack on.
There's other things I'm going to tell you later. It's been an unmitigated disaster. Anyway, there is a book. I'm not sure if Ultra might know this. There's a series of 3 books. I've just read the first. I read one of them. It's not the first one, but it's probably the best. It's called .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. Come across this? So
I've got the book. Yeah, I've not read it.
Yeah, it just finally, after all these years, the penny dropped. I thought, this is how you do modern digital marketing. It's just an end-to-end, just a playbook for how you do it through attracting an audience, building landing pages, email nurturing sequences, and it just lays it all out, just in really crisp, clear language. And looking around the sort of IFA community websites and things, I don't think many people nail this. There's a lot of websites out there which are effectively brochure websites, with nice pictures on them and our page and a bit about the team or whatever. But there's no if you're really serious about growing your business, you need to create this sort of marketing engine, which is based on science and evidence and check reviewing your data that comes through. So we are completely changing our website in the next few weeks. It's a really good book, and it's one of 3. If you're interested in growing your company, check out .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. I thank you.
Very, very good. Some good culture corners there. And Carl, when you were doing topical tidbits, and you mentioned that that commission scandal, as it were, and you said and then I think Alan said there are rogues in every profession. I'm currently reading a book that Ultra's read, Taxtopia, really good about accountants and dodgy accountancy scams. And it's not just in this thing of ours that there are dodgy things going on. If you
100%, yeah.
And I'll probably give a review of Taxtopia when I finish it in the Culture Corner in the next episode or 2. I think, gentlemen, are we done? We're looking at 83 minutes. We've somehow survived. So, dear Trappists, we're going to call that a wrap for this episode. Thank you for your precious time and your input via the questions. Please do leave a 6 out of 5 star review on iTunes. It really does help us and it helps with the algorithm. Likewise, if you go to our YouTube channel, which has now literally on the nail 800 subscribers, please like and subscribe to that. So every time we post a new episode, you'll get a little bell on your browser.
And by the way,
you know what I mean.
There is a early stage conversation about when we get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, we'll run a trap live, the live Q&A. Yeah,
there wasn't an early stage conversation. You put that up.
I did. Well,
you suggested it, and nobody replied.
Okay.
But as your natural leader, I'm just telling you that's what we'll do. Because it's going to be a while before we get to 1,000 anyway. It's taken us 2 years to get to 800, so another year.
You're the oldest. You're not the natural leader. You're the oldest. It's slightly different.
He sounds like John Motson coming from Dynamo Zagreb in a commentary game from the 1980s.
I was thinking John
jacket
from Beirut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
all right. Yes. Okay. Maybe we'll do that. What could go wrong? What could go wrong with our tech mastery that we have in this group?
Right. Come on.
A live YouTube episode. Okay. So do subscribe to our channel. But until the next time, Trappists, from the Trap Pack, it's adios and take care. Goodbye, folks. Goodbye.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
See ya.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
God.
End credits, Nick. End credits.
I pressed it, but I'm waiting for it.
Coming at you live from Zagreb.
Yeah. Smitty, I hope it comes out like that. It was just priceless.
Jesus Christ. I got through all this.
Right, I'm off to walk the dog. See you later.